Welcome to Building Reddit. I'm your host, Ryan H. Lewis. In today's episode, we're going behind the scenes into Reddit's effort to fix the video player experience for users. See, video on Reddit is massive. In the first half of 2022, there were 150 billion views of over 1 billion hours of video on Reddit. That's the equivalent of about 5,000 trips to Pluto and back. But there were some bugs and failures among all those successful replays of watching people die inside and tippy taps. So in April of 2022, Reddit started an initiative to fix issues with the video player. To do that, they had to engage with the community and get visibility into what was happening when bugs arose. And the initiative was a success, with bug reports and complaints dropping significantly over the year. In this episode, we'll hear from 3 Reddit employees behind the effort. We'll get the inside scoop on everything from how Reddit thinks about video, to how the company uses community to engage with users, to the engineering effort behind the necessary changes. And to start with, I wanted to find out more about where video fits into Reddit's strategy. So to do that, I spoke with TJ. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is TJ. I'm a group product manager on the core experience at Reddit. So working through how users experience the app and navigate and enjoy content that we have on the platform.
Reddit started as a place to post links and build community, back before video on the internet was viable. Now that video is a big deal, how does it fit into Reddit's mission?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our mission is to bring community and belonging to everyone in the world. And I think, frankly, over the last 15 years, the ways in which people communicate and share ideas and build community has evolved, and Reddit has evolved as well along that. So video is one of the central ways in which that explosion of mediums and mechanisms of communicating and connecting with each other across many different ways has expanded. And so we'll incorporate that into the way that we help people build community on Reddit.
What makes video special on Reddit?
Yeah, I think that ties down to ways in which Reddit is special as well. My early days as a Redditor, before I even started working at the company, I think I learned 3 things about people on Reddit. And the first is that they're a lot funnier than I ever thought they would be, and just across, deeply nested comments, like 20 minutes into a thread, and it'll be one of the funniest sentences I've ever read in my life. And they're also a lot more passionate about very, very specific topics than I ever thought people could be. I don't know if there's a question there's never been a question that I haven't seen the answer to on Reddit, or at least seen someone with a very strong opinion about on Reddit. And then thirdly, they're a lot more willing to help other people in general than I thought people were. And so I think all 3 of those things kind of translate themselves to video on Reddit, and what makes video Reddit special on Reddit as well. It's the community, it's the conversations that happen around those, and the comments for the videos. It's the ways in which people interact with things you may see in other places as well, and just sort of find new and interesting ways to contextualize that and connect with each other around either learning or laughing or feeling a strong set of emotions across content.
So it's really about community. Do you see video continuing to be critical to growing community at Reddit?
Video is an increasingly important way to build community and share ideas, whether it's for emotional or informational, or just a lot of different ways in which people connect with each other and sort of share what they're feeling and thinking. And so I think it's increasingly important for Reddit to also be able to find ways to incorporate that into how people build community and in different subreddits across Reddit. And the exciting thing is there's tens of thousands of different subreddits. There's hundreds of thousands of different ways for folks to use video in all those different contexts. And then so I think it'll be increasingly important for us to find ways to optimize that experience, and make it easier for folks to engage with and not just view, but also comment on or share or talk to other people about video and content on there as well.
Since you mentioned comments, that reminds me that Reddit recently made GIFs available in comments. Will video be added to comments?
I don't know about that. We'll take a look at it and we'll think through it. I think it's I've been having a lot of fun with the images and comments and pieces as well. I think it's helpful to find different ways to express ourselves, and so something we'll explore for sure. But as a product manager, I'm not going to promise anything just yet.
As an engineer, I don't want to even think about implementing that. Sounds pretty tough. Anyways, this episode focuses on the Fix the Video Player initiative, and I think it's important to be specific about what video player really means here.
Yeah, interestingly enough, there's a lot of different components and angles with which to look at that. So, in terms of video player, there's videos on a lot of different parts of Reddit. And so there's whether it's on your home feed or your subreddit page or the more full screen video experience. There's a lot of different areas in which a video player experience exists, and we're responsible for thinking about how that feels for users across all of those different areas. And that's also depending on which type of device and whether it's on iOS or Android or desktop, and a lot of different components. And so video player means a lot of different things. More recently, we've been thinking more about the media experience on Reddit. And so I think there's somewhat disconnected experiences across like images and collections of images and videos. And a lot of those things should feel somewhat similar in terms of how folks navigate and should have some level of consistency, even if not full consistency around that. So thinking about how we optimize that media experience and sort of that more immersive content experience across the platform.
You mentioned that video appears in many different parts of Reddit, like the home feed and subreddits. Are there differences in the video players in each one?
Yeah, the funny thing, I think before I started, people told me there were like 11 different video players on Reddit, and so depending on like where you are and what you're looking at, and like how you got there, and like which rabbit hole you were in when you were trying to get to that video, what you see might be coming from a very different video player, and so. One of the things that we've been thinking about is like, how do we make that a little bit more similar across them, and how do we also make sure that it's performant and it works well across all those different areas? And so it does make a difference where you're watching the video and what video you're watching and how you got there and stuff. But maybe it shouldn't as much in the future. It should be seamless and performant and high quality regardless.
Definitely. I'm curious about this Fix the Video Player initiative. How did it come about?
Yeah. So a few months ago, we posted our sort of broader annual plans on r/Reddit, which is a subreddit that we use to communicate to users around our plans and sort of just fun ideas and updates and news and things that happen across the community. And we got some pretty clear and resounding feedback that folks wanted an improvement in the video player. And so we've seen that feedback in a number of different areas. And there's been some frighteningly hilarious memes around some of those. And so that was around the time that I actually started up the company. And so focus was, we've seen this feedback. It's pretty clear what the users want. They want a better, more consistent video experience. How do we think about that? And how do we actually make progress on a relatively daunting problem, just given the thousands of different use cases and situations and typing the, multiple different video players and all of that we approach. And so started through an exercise and really had, one major sort of starting point for this, which is we created an actual subreddit called r/fixthevideoplayer. So acknowledging that there are significant areas of improvement in terms of the video experience on Reddit, and calling to the community to help us out in terms of identifying what we need to, what we should be focused on in terms of that and what issues are. And so we use that platform in a number of different ways. I think one is we've been thinking through, first we got to make sure videos play relatively consistently across those. So reducing the bugs and then sort of the errors and then the playback issues and sort of making so you have to think about the foundational technical piece around video. And so that's like one big component. We also get reports on individual types of bugs, so we can actually dive into any issues that users are seeing, or if there's something that new but that pops up over time, and sort of make sure we're addressing those and making sure that those are consistently approached. And then also we use it as a way to gather feedback around to the product itself. And so the direction of the ways in which we want to improve the overall media experience on Reddit. And so recently we posted a follow-up on r/Reddit around that vision and sort of where we see this going over the next months and maybe over the next year as well. And user feedback and sort of the feedback the community has given us on r/Fix the Video Player drove a lot of that in terms of where we're thinking in terms of the direction of the product and then where we want to take it.
I love that community feedback is helping to shape the future of Reddit. Can you say more about what Reddit has in store for video?
Yeah, a few of the areas that I'm particularly excited about are improvements they're going to make in the area of how video and conversations interact and connect with each other. I think that's one of the ways in which Reddit is most special is just it gives people a place to talk about content, whether it's a post or a video or an image or anything. And right now, it's way too hard to do that on the video player, on the full screen video player experience. And so pretty soon we're going to start seeing, we'll be making it easier for users to access comments and then read and then scroll through them. from the video player itself, so it's not such a difficult path to get to the conversation. That's one area that I'm particularly excited about. The other areas are we're continuing to improve consistency across the app and across the media experience across Reddit, which means simplifying the number of video players that we have, and so we're getting down to less than 11. And then also thinking about consistency across like images and sort of the gallery of images and then videos, and sort of making that a little bit more similar around like the gestures, sort of the interaction patterns, and the expectations that you can have for those experiences. And so those are two things I'm excited about. There's a bunch more in the works around that. We're continuing to try to work on performance improvements and foundational improvements to the way that videos are worked on Reddit, and then also some pieces around what you see when you train in the video player. So when you swipe up and you go to the next video, we like that to be an experience that provides the video that you're expecting to see. And if you're in a particular subreddit, you should probably see what's next in the subreddit, and that when you go through that experience. So a lot of different work on that front too.
You mentioned adopting consistent gestures and controls between images, image galleries, and video. How do you decide on the best approach for these different media types?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a lot of an art and a science in many ways, and so it's a combination of what are the things that we know that Reddit users are sort of enjoying, and so like in terms of how they interact with video right now. What are sort of like broader sort of contextual and sort of like known ways that folks engage with content more broadly across inside Reddit or outside of Reddit. And what's, how do we get users to things that matter the most? So like we should make it super easy for folks to watch a video, to play and pause a video, to access the conversations around the video. Those are all things that I think we all know are the core of what makes a positive experience when it comes to media on Reddit. And so I think just prioritizing some of those and then thinking about ways to make it easier. We do I think go through a lot of the testing processes, and we'll try it out with users, and we'll do some experimentation, and we'll talk to users about it and sort of get their feedback around which experience makes the most sense. And so a lot of different inputs go into that, and ultimately it's around just you sort of feel the experience, and and you can kind of tell around, is it, am I trying to like learn too many different things? Is it like wildly different if I like tap here versus tap there in this other context, or just hoping that it like that it feels as good as it should. And I know a lot of us are pretty heavy Reddit users, and so I'll notice if there's something off about it. Like I'll notice, and it'll eat at me until we actually address it. And this is one of those things where we need to have a little bit more consistency there, and so we'll get there.
With the understanding of how Reddit sees video from a product and strategic angle, I wanted to learn more about the effort to engage with the community to improve the video player. Andrea was able to provide a lot of insight. Here she is.
My name's Andrea Middleton, and I work on the community team at Reddit. And my work focuses on building conversations and bridges between the product organization of Reddit and the Reddit user base. I describe it frequently as bidirectional advocacy. We speak product to community, and then we speak community to product.
When you're speaking community to product, how are you getting that feedback from the community?
This is a great question, because there are like so many ways. We get feedback from our wonderfully outspoken Redditors through comments on announcement posts, certainly, but also in lots of different channels. We have support channels and subreddits like r/bug, r/help, r/Reddit mobile. We also have specific channels for seeking and receiving feedback from our trusted volunteers or our community leaders that most people know as our moderators. And those include the mod support subreddit, as well as a specific trusted volunteer program we call the Reddit Mod Council or Moderator Council, where we get, bring ideas and wireframes and discussions to that council to get high quality, qualitative feedback on ideas and products. We also, as a company, do a fair amount of user experience research to get a better quantitative understanding of how Redditors are using or struggling to use Reddit. And so that combination of lots of things helps us build a picture of both what Redditors are having trouble with and what activities are really engaging that we should start kind of driving more toward to encourage and make those activities easier.
It's really powerful that Reddit is using communities on its own platform to improve the platform itself.
Yeah, we have certainly in the past couple of years really accelerated or kind of given more room toward engaging in beta testing and pilot programs for new products that we're bringing to the Reddit user base. Can think of maybe in my time here, which has been fairly short, maybe 8 to 10 different pilot programs where the product organization or product team is working very closely with a small group of users who are using a very early version of a feature and giving them really quick turnaround, high value feedback on different products. And that kind of new play for Reddit, new-ish play, has been really beneficial in helping us understand, because the thing about Redditors is they're incredibly creative and think in ways that, there's so many people on Reddit that there's a lot of kind of unexpected creativity that comes up. And you can only really tap into that from an intentional product creation perspective if you're working really closely with users. And if people love to do that, then Reddit is a great place to do that.
Could you share what Reddit users have been saying about the video player experience and how that feedback changed over time?
Yeah, this is certainly a changing, happily, a changing story, because earlier this year, and for a while now, Redditors have been very clear that they are wanting a video player that works consistently and reliably. And they have had a lot to say on that subject. It's brought up frequently. And it's a good example, I think, of how the quantity of usability feedback in public can reach a tipping point. As a company, as an engineer or someone in the product org, you hear fix the video player enough times, and at some point you're like, okay, y'all, I think we have a problem here. And I'm excited to report that since we started working more closely with our users, the number of times we have heard the phrase fix the video player has reduced dramatically. And through working more closely with users, we've gained, much higher quality bug reports. And of course, high quality bug reports or issues that are raised help direct our engineering work in a way that benefits users the most directly. In fact, since we started this community, which is r/fix the video player, easy to remember, we have received over 100 non-duplicated bug reports, and things that we can take from the public sphere into an actual bug tracking system. And I'm very excited to report that, more than a third of those have already been fixed. And of course, now when you're talking about volume of bug reports, not all bugs affect a user base to the same severity or in the same kind of size of group, right? So it can be very misleading to be like, this many bugs, this many fixed, because one bug could be ruining the experience of 75% of the people that are using the video player. And then another bug could be harming the experience of 1% of the people who are using the video player. So when we get these bug reports, all of them are always valuable. but we prioritize them based on, and engineering is probably the best person to talk about this, but we prioritize that based on how many people it impacts, what degree of the impact exists, and then like how complicated the problem is, right? Because like, it's not great to say, yeah, we only, we fixed a really big bug, but all of us worked on it on that one thing for 3 months, right? So there's always a really complicated kind of algebra in prioritizing how you respond to user reports, but none of that algebra can like equal 100 unless we actually have the bug reports from users. And so like being able to get that feedback from people has been immensely valuable. I will also say, for full disclosure, like there's also a certain passionate group of Redditors who don't much like the style of the video player. Vertical video, scroll to see a new video, things like that. And many of them have been quite vocal about how they prefer a different user experience. That is more of a taste and preference issue than a performance issue. And with the size of the Reddit user base, you're always going to find differing tastes. So, the bug reports are something that are easy to take action on within a certain framework, or at least prioritize. Sometimes the stylistic feedback is, sometimes we just got to make a choice and say, no, this is the style. Sorry if you don't like it, but this is the style that hopefully works for the majority of the people who are using the video player. So, and that's always sometimes a complicated conversation to have with our passionate users.
They certainly are passionate. Channeling that passion into a single subreddit, our Fix the Video Player, must have made it much easier to act on. What has the experience been using that subreddit as a way to gather feedback?
Yeah, I'm really proud of what has come from the creation of this subreddit r/fix the video player, because we have this very specific community owned and operated by the admins, which is a space set aside specifically and especially so that Redditors can report video player bugs, and so that admins or Reddit employees can report back to this passionate group of bug spotters what we're fixing and how we're prioritizing the work. I will say it started very busy when we opened it up, and some of the activity has slowed down. Hopefully because there are a lot fewer bugs to report. Like that's what we're hoping for, is to get down to a minimal number of bugs. And so that is kind of going as we were hoping it would. But that channel of closer communication, both proactive communication from the company and then also communication back to the people reporting bugs so that we can get more information, so that we can fix it more quickly, has been an incredible gift to our engineering and product teams. And I'm really excited to see how we can keep it going in the new year, and maybe even try this with other areas where we struggle, bringing Redditors the experience that we want them to have.
You mentioned that before our Fix the Video Player, Reddit users would reply to company announcement posts and generally post feedback on video all over Reddit, which is a really big place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about Reddit's product, which is community, right? It makes a ton of sense for us to take a community approach to something like this. And the thing that community is a whole bunch of people gathered together with similar interests, having conversations about their shared interests. And so what the Fix the Video Player community does is it pulls together the people who have a passionate interest in the improvement of the video player, who are, on the user base side, and the people who are passionately interested in fixing it from engineering and product, right? And it puts them all in a space where they can have direct conversations without pulling people in who aren't that interested, without, it's just a high signal, low noise space. And that's where you can really get things done.
With all the feedback coming in, Reddit engineering needed to figure out what changes to make to resolve users' issues with the video player. Jameson goes into more detail about those changes.
So I'm Jameson Williams, and I work on Android, the Android platform lead for the part of our company called Consumer Products.
What are the responsibilities of the consumer products team?
Yeah, Consumer Products owns a bunch of core functionality on Reddit. So our home feed, the subreddit listing feed, the popular feed, the video player, which we'll be talking about today, the conversation experience, sort of all that core Reddit-y stuff that's been around for a while.
So TJ shared a lot about how video appears on Reddit. How does all of that work from an engineering perspective?
Yeah, totally. So I think it's useful to break the problem up into the phases of a video's life. So a user uploads videos to Reddit, or Reddit by itself goes and scrapes videos in some cases. Then we process the video and store them somewhere, augment that with a little bit of metadata. And then lastly, there's the part where we deliver the video to one of the clients, like the user perceives. So we have a few different websites at this point. We've got an iOS client, we've got an Android client, and that's the part I think that I'll probably spend the most time talking about today.
So there are a bunch of different ways Reddit delivers that video, right? New Reddit, old Reddit, mobile web, the iOS app, the Android app. Are there 5 different clients?
At least 5. Yeah, that's a great call out. I think when I use Reddit, I don't really perceive, I'm just sort of browsing around. I don't perceive it as a collection of all these different systems, but it really is, right? So when we talk about the video player, it's really like, well, which video player? Our web platform lead made a joke recently. We have more video player code bases for the web than we actually have engineers working on this problem. I think we had like 5 or something. So we've been trying to get rid of them just so we have some alignment on where to improve.
That's a lot of work. When did the engineering team start focusing on fixing the video player?
Yeah, so we had sort of mounting community feedback earlier in this year, and around April is when engineering was engaged to start thinking of some technical improvements we could make based on the information we had available at that time. Definitely, as we got more engaged, we learned more and more, and our plans sort of evolved. But the first sort of big document that our client platform leads put together was in April, with another big one, I would say, in July. That's when we started really looking at the web in earnest.
That's pretty recent. As part of this initiative, were there a lot of tests added to catch bugs before users experience them?
Yeah, definitely. We've added a bunch more test coverage. I think more useful than that even has been adding telemetry and observability into what's happening in the video player. For a long time, we'd had reports like, hey, the video doesn't load at all, or I just get a black screen. But those are incredibly challenging to fix unless you get some technical data on what's actually happening. So one of the very first milestones in this project was to add a bunch of code to spit out technical facts and report them back to Reddit so we could get a better read on what was going wrong.
That telemetry sounds useful. What were some of the insights that it provided?
Yeah, one of the first things we found was that Android was in much worse shape than the other platforms in terms of just working at all. And I would say that's been true over the course of the project. While we've reduced the number of complaints every week, pretty much, Android has always been about half of them. And one of the really glaring things that I found when I started looking at these error logs was that we would just sort of create video players and not get rid of them. And sure enough, we'd run out of resources and not be able to play videos anymore. So there was some very basic stuff like that we had to fix.
Resource management can sometimes be a tricky thing.
Yeah, and I mean, the other problem on Android is there's a bajillion types of phones. So if you have a low-end phone, you'd run into this issue pretty quickly. If you have a high-end phone, you you might not catch it in a single session.
Was there anything unique about video on Android that caused it to produce the majority of reported bugs?
Yeah, so I think that the concept is called fragmentation, right? And it refers to the sort of differing behavior of different vendors and versions of Android over time. I can think of a specific example where we had a new Android device come out. It was a T-Mobile device, and they were calling this one platform API that wasn't implemented correctly by the vendor, or was implemented differently, to be fair. And so videos didn't play at all. And I ended up seeing that because, for the specific device type, the playback rate was just abysmal. And so I was able to target it and look into some other reports.
So what are some of the things that your team has done to fix the video player?
Yeah, totally. So I think looking at the community feedback and starting to measure that and get a little more scientific about the areas of feedback, mapping them into technical priorities, adding a bunch of metrics to the clients and on the back end, so we could track sessions and failure of sessions and quality of sessions. But if I were to categorize the types of issues we have, I think on Android, we had a lot of reliability problems. On iOS, we had some audio state management problems, a smaller category of no playback problems. On the web, people have primarily been complaining about quality. So I think the web player will play videos or more frequently than iOS and Android. At least that was true as of April. But the video quality, the resolution, the bitrate wasn't what people were expecting, which makes sense because it's a larger viewport, right? You get a little screen versus a big display. You expect better stuff. And then looking more holistically at video across the platforms, I think, people had a lot of feedback about just sort of how this paginated video player we launched works, getting in and out of it, using comments, playback controls being inconsistent on different surfaces, having the ability to download videos and images, and a never-ending stream of problems uploading content. So those apply, I would say, to all three platforms.
Other than video playback, has your team made improvements to other areas in the video lifecycle, like uploading?
Yeah, so the playback is definitely the area where most people were noticing the problem. But I think, if you bubble out a little bit, some of the problems begin much earlier than that, right? Like, so if you upload a video and we fail to encode it in the right format, or it gets deleted or moderated away, those will all impact the playback experience if we're not handling it right. And indeed, we had a number of such problems arise as we were looking into it, right? Where we were just sort of not telling the user why something like a video was deleted, right? And we wouldn't say, hey, this video was deleted. It would just show up as a broken window. So there's a long tail of little issues like that were easily resolved by better communicating errors to the user.
What were some of the specific changes that were made to improve video?
Yeah, in recent times, we've been looking at encoding and packaging and trying to get a little bit more up to speed with the industry in terms of what we're doing there. So one of the big wins we had this year was to start using regular MP4s for short videos. So let's see, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but there's a few different ways you can deliver videos, right? There's streams, which are better for longer content. There's protocol called Dash. There's one called HLS that we have been using on iOS and Android. But what we found was that that's a lot of overhead for short videos of the form that are frequently found on Reddit. So by delivering little MP4s, we can get them to the client quicker and have them start sooner and with a lower error rate. And one of the areas of experimentation we've been doing is, well, how do we encode the video in the MP4? What quality should it be? How does a user's available bandwidth impact that? What can we do with ML on the back end to make some of these choices intelligently? So it's sort of a wide open space. And I think as we get into next year, I'm really excited to do some of the machine learning stuff around encoding ladders and more intricate technical solutions like that.
Have you used any valuable open source projects?
Yeah, open source is a big deal at Reddit. We use a bunch of stock components in our video stack. So on Android, we make heavy use of Exoplayer. A lot of the functionalities and fixes I did this year on Android, I would say we're directly using Exoplayer APIs. For example, we now proactively fetch the next upcoming video in the feed, and so the user perceives it as already being there, and it's a great user experience win. But Exoplayer has some stock tools that facilitate that behavior.
And do you have any data on how users' video player experience has improved?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of no playback errors, I think we started at about 4% of all videos on Android, so pretty outrageous. On iOS, it was more like 1% or something like that. We're currently down under 0.5% on both platforms. So yeah, Android's about an 8x improvement, I guess that would be, and iOS is at least twice as good. There's other ways of looking at the problem too, right? So we can measure community feedback and look at how many people are coming to us to complain. And I've been putting together a little report with a Python script every week. That number has been going down almost linearly for the past 6 months. So we had this peak of thousands of people complaining a month, and now it's down to a handful, really.
That sounds like an incredible improvement. So what's in the future for video from an engineering perspective?
Yeah, I think some of the video delivery aspects that I was alluding to, those get really technical and really interesting. I'm excited to be working on those. I think those are the right sorts of things to be looking at to address our current set of customer complaints, which are mostly about quality and bandwidth utilization. So we'll see some wins there. I think we have a bunch of big improvements that'll be coming up for the web experience. The web program was a little bit staggered from mobile, but a lot of the impactful things that we've been working on will start landing in the next couple months. We're making some product level changes that we've had to accommodate for in engineering related to how comments work and how you get in and out of the player. Again, directly based on customer feedback. I think that stuff will be really good. Trying to think, what else do we have coming up? Oh, I'm really excited for captions. Our mission at Reddit is to bring community belonging and empowerment to everybody in the world. And part of that means that we need to be as accessible as we can. So captions help us deliver on our mission as a company, but they also help us understand the content that's in a video. And so we can make better content recommendations about videos and deliver more value to everybody.
So that's the inside scoop about Fix the Video Player. To end the episode, my guests were gracious enough to answer a few very important non-video related questions. The first was, if you were on a deserted island and could only access one subreddit, what would it be and why? Here's what they said.
Oh, that's a really good question. I imagine there's a subreddit out there that would be super practical, like would contain advice, maybe help you feel a little less lonely. There's a lot of subreddits that are good at stuff like that. I think one of the problems I would have on the island is just like kind of keeping faith in existence, right? Like, so maybe I really like wholesome memes because it just makes me feel good. So maybe I'd use that to find some inspiration and motivation that the world really is a good place.
Well, if I were all out on a deserted island, I feel like I would be very sad because I would be missing people that I love. And when I am feeling sad, I like to go to Reddit and look at cute animal subreddits. And so currently, I think there is one called Tippy Taps that is basically animals who are so excited that their little paws go tippity tap. And it never fails to make me laugh and cheer me up and get my energy back up to be able to do cool things, which would be, in the case of the deserted island, probably building a raft or a shelter. So that is probably the subreddit that I would want to take with me.
Gosh, that's a really tough one. I spend a decent amount of time on r/NBA now because the season's picking up, but I don't know if that's something that's like broad enough for me to like be happy with for an entire lifetime. I'll go with r/Ask Reddit maybe, just some of the like questions and answers on there are really interesting, and there's such a wild array of topics. So maybe that's one where I won't ever get bored, and I'll keep learning some things. Maybe I'll learn how to survive on this desert island as well. So seems to have a good balance there.
Next, I had to know, what is your favorite meme?
I like a lot of the ones that have to do with like subverting your like odd expectations or like unexpected results. And so like the Drake one is one that I just like use a lot and feel always makes me laugh, just because I don't know, it's like a situation which people like the expected results very different from what we'd expect. I think it's just funny to see like those facial expressions too. So it's an odd reason to like that one, but it's a funny one.
You know, I don't think of memes as favorites versus non-favorites, but if I had to choose one, I do really enjoy the how it started, how it's going genre of memes. And then I kind of in the same vein, the I don't even know her name, but the kombucha tasting lady meme of how she tries the thing and she's like, no. And then she's like, maybe that face. And I can't remember what that meme is actually called. But I have a very, very expressive face. And so I really have a lot of empathy with someone who's now famous on the internet for having a face that's very and I do a lot of that, like a lot of like, I don't like that. Oh, maybe I do. So I like those.
I like some of the old ones. At work, right, we use a lot of memes to make jokes about things that are happening inside Reddit. And I guess in that context anyway, I use the Drake one a lot, where he's like, oh, no thanks. Then he's like, yeah. I use that one constantly for my opinions on different technical matters.
Well, that's it for this episode. A huge thanks goes out to TJ, Andrea, and Jameson for providing such great insight into the Fix the Video Player initiative. So what did you think? Does it sound cool to build Reddit, one of the largest sites on the internet? If so, check out our open positions at www.redditinc.com/careers. And to get more behind the scenes info, check out Reddit's engineering blog at reddit.com/r/RedditEng. That's ENG. And that's it for now. See you in the next episode of Building Reddit. Building Reddit is an official podcast from Reddit hosted by Ryan H. Lewis. This episode was produced by Jameson Williams and Ryan H. Lewis. Thanks for listening.